It's that time again. We're bringing back the Against the Insanity podcast. It's been away from a little bit of a year break. We've been trying to figure things out here, what we want to do. This technically should be episode 9 for the show. But Ricky and I wanted to bring the show back and finally get really back into the swing of things now that we are available. What's going on, Ricky?
Oh, it's been crazy, very busy. Part of the reason why we haven't done it in a little while, but yeah, we want to get back into it, bring the show back, um, and go from there.
Still have a shit president. Unfortunately, that hasn't changed.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Speaking of shit presidents, the most recent tragedy, the fucking Chinese weather balloon that we had floating over the United States that they finally decided to do something about yesterday.
Yeah, they shot it down finally. I don't understand this weather balloon situation, honestly. Like the fact that it was flying over our land for as long as it's been. Why they didn't do anything before it got over land. There's a lot that just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, there's people that were saying, "Oh, it's a weather balloon." Well, I mean, the Pentagon came out, they made a statement, and they did a conference, and the guy basically confirmed it was not a weather balloon. It was indeed a surveillance type of a balloon.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason of leaving it, still flying over the land doesn't make sense to me. I mean, they confirmed that it shouldn't be. It's in our airspace when it's not supposed to be. It's like infringing on international type laws and all kinds of shit. So the fact that it was left go for as long as it was, I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me at all.
Well, a lot of people were saying that the reason that Biden chose to do nothing about it because he had an audience with President Xi coming up. I think it was like this weekend. Actually, it was supposed to be. So he left it go until he fucking got what he needed, which we all know he's owned by China at this point. There's no need to go into explanations. I'm sure if you've been following the story, he seems to be in bed with China for quite a few years. And also,
Right.
I thought it was weird too. Like, I don't know, did you see the video when they shot the balloon? How when it exploded, like all that white fucking powder came out
I
of it?
did. Yeah, I did see
I thought
that.
that was fucking odd too. Now, I don't know, maybe it's just something simple as, there's just something, builds up inside the balloon after all those years or something or whatever. But I just thought that was odd too when they finally did shoot it down. Like this just white fucking gas of smoke fucking comes out of there.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's weird. It definitely is weird to me. As far as like a security type, standpoint, they were saying the reason why they weren't shooting it down was because, it you know, being over the country and, if you blow it up, the debris coming down, landing on civilians, hurting people, possibly killing people and all that. I get that to an extent. But at the same time, why did we let it get this close over the country? That's kind of where that's what doesn't sit right with me. And they did come out and say that they were able to see that it didn't propose any type of threat. There was no like weapons or a bomb or any type of
Yet.
substance there. Right. Yeah. Right. But still, it's not weaponized. It doesn't seem like it's going to propose any type of threat. So let's let it fly over the country. Like, I don't know, dude.
No, dude, that's not our military. That's some
No.
bitch ass shit, if you ask me. What's funny is like I sent you guys that meme yesterday about somebody saying this is what President Trump's response to the Chinese balloon would have been like.
Mhm.
And I got to read it here. It says, President Z, sorry not to burst your bubble, but if you ever try to fly one of your cheap made in China balloons over the USA again, we will fly some made in America fighter jets over Beijing. And to be honest, that's what the response should have been.
Right.
If you ever do this again, we're going to put foot to ass and we're going to fucking.
Right. Well, I guess the Chinese kind of made a statement as well, and they were basically saying like, "Oh, the United States, they're overreacting, and they didn't have to blow it up, and blah blah blah." But it's like you're not taking any accountable for the fact that your shit is over our country right now, though. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know, dude.
Yeah, there's a lot that I don't understand, like how we figured out it was China's to begin with, and
Mhm.
I do have so many questions, and unfortunately, they're never going to be answered because you can't really trust the media anymore. I take it
No,
with a grain of salt and proceed with caution, and just kind of go from there because yeah, we're just not getting the full story.
no.
It seems like with all the bullshit that's been going on in Ukraine and now China, it's like they're really trying to push us towards some more conflict, and
Mhm.
that's I don't think what we need right now, but that's just my opinion.
What I found interesting during the Pentagon press conference, if you want to call it that, there was two topics that they were talking about: the balloon, and then there was other questions about like the situation in Ukraine with Russia and all that shit going on. What I found interesting was any time that they were talking about the balloon, when people were asking, can you provide us more details on the balloon? How did it get here? Why did we allow it over the American soil? Like when people were asking specifics, it seemed like he was trying to avoid and evade, and he just basically said like, we're evaluating and gathering information and coming up with a plan on what we're going to do. But at this time, we're not really saying much or anything. But then when people would ask specific questions about Ukraine, it seemed like he was more than willing to like go in depth, talk about the plan, talk about like what we're doing to help them. And it seemed like they were providing more intel regarding Ukraine than they were willing to provide intel on a balloon in our own fucking country. That was very interesting to me. If you
It's
watch
funny.
that Pentagon video.
Yeah, I actually got to go back and watch that. I saw Nick sent that, but it's funny. This just popped up in my fucking my feed from Telegram, and it says breaking: the chief director of the Chinese meteorological organization administration has reportedly been removed from his position due to blame being placed on him for the accidental flyover the United States that was conducted by a Chinese high altitude surveillance balloon.
Hmm.
So that's kind of interesting too, like
Yeah.
to see.
And like I guess my question too is like, what was this balloon gathering? So there's been rumors out there that it was looking at like military bases in the
Yeah,
country. I
that
don't
looked like
know
the
if that's
flight
true.
path. No,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen that where people were showing like the flight path the balloon took,
Mhm.
and that could have possibly been the explanation.
Yeah. So if that's the case, like I don't know, man.
That
What are
should
they
scare.
trying to
That should
gather?
scare people. Yeah,
It
exactly. I
should.
mean, if,
Yeah.
if if indeed it's China and it's not our government just spying on us as usual, I think we really should think long and hard about how our response next time this shit fucking happens.
Right. It should never make it over our soil.
But
Shoot
that's when
that
you get.
shit down
Yeah,
before time, ahead of time.
that's when you get when you have a fucking bird brain for a president.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. He's not making decisions for our country. He's
He's
in bed
making
with all the
decisions for
others.
China.
Right. In
So
Ukraine.
and I think this kind of falls in line, our next topic too, with, what would you do in case of an emergency? Like we were kind of talking about this yesterday, Ricky, about a lot of companies, especially our government and stuff like that, who are moving to more of a like a cloud infrastructure. It's more of
Yep.
a government cloud infrastructure because I know they claim to have more security and stuff, but it just seems like more and more like these hacks that are taking place online and shit. Like
Hmm.
it seems to me like that's a very bad idea, and I
Yeah.
just. I know you're kind of like working through that right now. You're going through like a possible move for that, but like, I kind
Yeah.
of wanted to bring that up and see what your thoughts are.
Yeah. I mean, cybersecurity, of course, is a, big time issue just everywhere. I mean, you can't get around it. It's impacting globally all over the, world. But besides the cybersecurity aspect of it, if there was any type of attack from another country, they fly a balloon again, and it has the potential for EMP and different, just all kinds of scenarios that you could throw at this. Power grid going down, internet going down for an extended period of time, cybersecurity threat. I mean, you name it. Like more and more companies are relying on the internet, where you have to be able to access the internet so that you can get to your resources, servers, environment, because everyone's hosting shit these days. And, some of the concerns that I have is, what if something does happen? What if the internet does go down for an extended period of time, a week or more? power goes out, EMP type thing, or if we do have like an issue where it's warfare related, like there's going to be a lot of companies out there that are going to be in a world of hurt because they're not going to be able to access their stuff. I mean, basic things like payroll. I mean, if you have payroll in the cloud and you're relying on your internet service provider so that you can do that, I mean, every 2 weeks to be able to pay your employees and the system goes down, how are you paying your employees? You know what I mean? And it goes even further in depth with that. I mean, police department agencies, I mean, you name it. It could be as minimal to as extreme as possible, depending on what you're putting in the cloud. And, I don't think going to the cloud is a perfect option for everybody. I just don't.
No, and I mean, and to kind of put into perspective too, a place like here in California where we can't even keep the fucking electricity on all summer, like it's a huge thing. So like, these companies host your data because I know there's not a lot of people that understand cloud computing and stuff, but what in theory, putting it into like a simple explanation, there's a company out there that hosts all of your data like on the internet, on their servers. So when your internet goes down, you're unable to get to their servers
Right.
and access your data. So it's essentially like inaccessible to
Right.
anyone.
Right.
And if your emails like Microsoft 365, that's all stored on Microsoft servers. So there goes your email, and so on. You can kind of see where it goes from there. And, it does scare me too. Like even with my personal files, like at home, like I always try to keep, a local copy of a backup of, my most important files and shit like that right here, because I know that, the cloud and the internet is not reliable all the time. I was telling you the other day too, Ricky, when I initially was shopping around, just looking at, like, if you look for pre-built computers here in California, a lot of times they won't even let you buy certain computers because they're power hogs and shit like that. Because California knows like our fucking power grid fucking sucks ass. But how crazy is that? I can't buy a computer. They won't ship it to California because of the fucking power consumption it uses. Like,
Yeah. That's pretty
it's
crazy. Like if your
fucking
power supply is like
retarded.
drawn so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
The company straight up, like when you go to order, it says will not ship to California due to power ratings and consumption. And I'm like, this is fucking madness, dude.
Yeah. And that's one of the states too that they're pushing for the whole electric cars too. Like, dude, everybody in California cannot have an electric car and your power grid still remain on. Like there's no way.
No, it's we're headed towards fucking disaster here, and I have my thoughts, and I'm working on that right now. We're
Right.
working on that with some up and coming things that I want to get done here. A
Right.
little more on that when the time comes, but I think that'd be fucking kick ass.
Yeah. I really don't think it's a matter of if. It honestly
No,
is
it's
the
when.
question of when something big is going to happen. It's going to be an eye opener for a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of, whatever out there to realize, oh shit, this happened. It brought down the company X amount of days, weeks, whatever the case is. And they're going to really evaluate the whole cloud thing. Because, I mean, I get it. There are some things you can put into place to have like a fail safe or a backup. If your cloud services go down, you could remain on premise and do things. However, a lot of companies don't have that mindset or the funds available to
Yeah.
have both either, where it's
Oh,
like, it's pretty like a one or none solution where it's either you're on prem or you're in the cloud. There's a lot of people that aren't considering the option of both. And that's where, I think it's going to come a time where they're going to really realize, oh shit, you need to have both measures.
and I think your average person should consider that too. Like, it's nice to buy the extra Apple Cloud storage and stuff like that, but start thinking in terms of like, how could you ever get your data back? Like if somebody hacks into your iCloud account or something like that and deletes all that fucking data, or if Apple starts scanning your fucking data in the cloud like they wanted to with pictures to look for, under the guise of child porn and stuff. Say they
Mhm.
start looking for other shit. Like it's something for people to consider, like knowing where your data is going and where it's stored, because if the shit hits the fan or you need to access something, you need to make sure that it's more local to you, so you can get access to that shit quickly as opposed to waiting for the internet to come back up because, especially here in California, you can't depend on fucking like the power to stay on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. People keep trying to use the argument of, it's 2023, the time and age that we're in, everything should be cloud. It's like, no, you don't understand. You really do not understand the big picture that it is a possibility that the shit just goes down. The more and more you're relying on the internet to be there. Yeah.
You're just asking for trouble,
Yeah,
It's just one.
you are.
Hence, one of the reasons I made the move, and I'm no longer in IT because it got to a point with me where I was just, fed up with a lot of this same shit,
Right.
and I don't want to have to fucking deal with it anymore. Now it's on my own personal level that I can get involved in IT, but I don't know. We'll see what the future holds. But yeah, people really need to reevaluate those kind of things. And it just seems like people are being lazy and just throwing their data wherever. Well, you really need to consider these things,
Right.
because you could destroy your company in a matter of fucking days based off of just something going down.
And one more thing I want to touch on, especially like the security aspect of it. Like, usually when you keep things on premise, I mean, there's a whole bunch of shit to consider as far as security, making sure your network is, secure, data is encrypted, all these things. And then you're going to take that same principle and then rely on the internet
And
to
another
house that
company.
data and another company to manage that data, to secure that data, to make sure that they're not, doing anything with it or selling the data or sharing the data. It's like
Exactly.
when you put it in the cloud, there is no guarantee, 100% no guarantee that something like that couldn't happen.
Yeah.
So just, another food for thought type scenario there. Just, you got to think about that shit. You really do.
Yeah, because somebody's definitely looking at that data. I mean, there's no way around it. Like even your photo, people think that their photos in iCloud are fucking like secure and stuff. Somebody still has access to that in Apple. You know what I mean? They can probably see that shit no problem. So think about, when you're posting, before you post that shit or take those photos and just leave them there sitting in your iCloud, I'm sure at some point somebody can see that.
Right. I mean, especially with like the whole facial recognition shit with your phone. What I find funny too is like if you open up like iPhone, for example, that's what I use. But like if you go to your pictures, like where your albums are located, there's one for my phone that shows like people, and you click on people, dude, and every picture that you have taken that has,
Mm-hmm.
someone's face in it, it organizes it by like, person even. So don't tell me there's not shit going on in the background that's, looking at that shit.
Exactly. And your live photo, even with the live photos, it's funny because Amy and I were watching this TV show, and it's like it's a comedy show. It's called the Other Two of Us or something like that on HBO. And this guy, like, he sends a picture to this dude of his ass or something like that. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it was worse than that. But he thinks he's anonymous and stuff like that, but he was not considering that he took it from an iPhone and the live photos. So like when obviously when he snaps a picture, it records the last couple seconds of the photo. So like as he removing the camera away from his ass, it comes up and his face is still in the picture. So then he sends it to this guy, and then the guy starts sending it around the internet, and he doesn't understand like how like everybody knows it's him. Well, because of the fact that you have live photo on, it's flashed up to see his face. Like right after he got done taking the picture, he brought the phone back up to his face.
That's funny.
I was like, how does everybody know it was me? Well, you had live photos on, dude.
Right, and you put your face in it, idiot.
Exactly. So, there are ways to find that shit out.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. And, this is something that's been bugging me for a long time, moving on. But this freaking whole brand new, like we talk about it all the time, like all this woke culture and shit like that. This news story about a professor. Oh, dude, I can't get this fucking link to launch. Here we go. So we have it's funny. So a professor in Salem, Oregon, who is a self-described expert in quotes, in racism and social change, derided that white people for showing up as damaging to people of color. Professor Emily Drew of Willamette University works for a consulting company called Crossroads, which charges tens of thousands of dollars for critical race theory related development sessions. Drew has consulted with school districts as a strategic planner, helping them to develop and implement long term commitments to anti racist multicultural diversity.
What the fuck?
This has been showing up, more and more in all these schools. This is what parents discovered over the whole, you know, the lockdowns and shit like that, that this was going on in schools when, their kids were at school learning. Like these schools are trying to sell these kids all this, kids are coming home and saying, apologizing to their parents and shit for just being white. It's like,
Yeah, I don't understand this shit. I really don't. And because when I was growing up, like my parents, I don't remember ever having a conversation specifically with my parents about like, oh, you need to treat all people with respect regardless of what color they are, white, black, indifferent. Like that conversation never occurred. Like when I went to school, like I didn't go to school thinking, oh, those are the white kids. Those, I can hang out with those kids, or those are the black kids. Maybe I should stay away from them. Like that never crossed my mind as a kid in school. Like I just saw people as people. Like I don't know.
yeah,
I never thought of it of like, you know, they're different because of their skin color. Like people are people to me. like I don't know, dude. And it seems like the more that this shit goes on in these schools, you're almost programming kids to think that way.
I wouldn't say almost, as they are programming
Yeah.
kids to think that way. I mean, that's been highly established at this point that these teachers and stuff push these agendas on the kids to program them to think like that. Like the whole Florida anti-grooming bill, because some of these teachers are intentionally, bringing their sexual orientation to the kids, and it's none of the kids' business what your sexual orientation is. You shouldn't be discussing that with my kids. I'm sorry,
Right.
like that's fucked up.
Yeah. No, I agree. But it's no, and you're right. It is for sure programming kids to think that way. Like you go into a room and like, what are these kids thinking? Oh my goodness, there's so many white people here, or there's so many whatever race. Like you
What
are
does it
putting that,
fucking matter?
yeah, and ingraining that shit in people's heads where that's what they're thinking of. And like I said, I mean, when I grew up, I was born in '90. You know, I never thought that way. I never entered a room and thought about, oh my God, there's this many whites or Asians or
Yeah,
blacks or Hispanics or like whatever. Like, I
they're
don't get it.
intentionally creating
Diversity.
diversity
They
and
are.
cutting these people off and shit like that. And it's so funny. It's like they want to go back to where they have segregated rooms for like black people and white people. Like,
How is that not racist?
how is
How
that?
is that
We
not a
fixed
step
that with the
backward?
fucking civil rights. It's
Right.
like,
They used to have bathrooms specifically for like, this is a white's bathroom and this is a black's bathroom. Like, if they keep up their bullshit, dude, we're
that's where we're
going
going.
backwards. Yeah.
We are
We
going
really, we
backwards.
really are. Like, I don't get it. This isn't a step forward with the bullshit that they're doing. It's not.
I saw this clip going around the internet where this guy, he was at, I don't know, it was at some protest or something like that, and he had a "Women for Trump" shirt on, and this girl, who's a liberal, obviously, is coming up and is like arguing with him, and she's like, "I find it funny that, you're protesting for women for Trump or something like that," and the guy's like, "Did you just assume my gender, like the fact that she was calling him a white male?" and she's like, and he's basically using their logic against her. And you could see like her head like starting to melt down, like she did. And she's like, "Oh, I can't really say this based off of the rules that they created."
Right.
She can't call him a white man because he could easily be a white woman identified as in her language.
That's funny.
But you could just see the wheels turning. She's like, "Oh, okay, I get what you're saying here." Like, because she couldn't argue with him because the guy was right. Like, did you just assume my gender? She like melted down inside her brain.
That's fucking funny.
But yeah, when you use their fucking arguments against them, like, and the wheels start turning, then they
Yeah.
get it. It
Right.
clicks, and you can just see it happen in real time. I love it.
Right.
But yeah, they definitely need to just really ban this shit from schools, because if I would have had to go through this stuff in school, dude, I'd be kicked out. I would
Right.
not put up with this shit, and I would definitely be complaining to my mom every night about having to deal with this, because
What's
there's just no way.
It seems like they're putting a huge emphasis on this bullshit, and it's taking away from actually learning shit that kids should be learning.
Yep. And I
You know
wonder
what I
why
mean?
half of our fucking kids don't
Right.
aren't proficient in math and
Right.
sciences and stuff. Well, right there it is. I mean, this is what we're focused on.
Yeah.
Fake science.
Yeah. We're doomed to repeat mistakes that have happened in the past because of how the curriculum is handled anymore, where you're teaching bullshit and you're not teaching what you should be. And
Exactly.
that's how I feel about
Yeah,
it.
I totally agree. We need to get rid of this shit. It needs to go away.
Yeah.
Bye bye. All these crazy professors and stuff like that. I don't care if you're tenured or not. There needs to be some kind of, plan in place that even if these teachers are tenured and they're in the union and stuff, if you're not helping students and you're hurting their curricular activities, you need to go. Like, you should
Mhm.
have to prove your job. You know what I mean? Just like the rest of us.
Right.
Instead of fucking, teaching these kids nonsense, fucking making them stupid.
Right. I agree.
Well, I'd say that's all I have at this point. We just wanted to kind of bring back the show, start off, probably, sweet spot around 20 minutes or so, 25, depending on how it goes. Moving forward, hopefully every weekend we can get a show out here, and, more of the same. I definitely, politics is definitely ingrained into what's been going on lately, so there will be a lot more of that.
Right.
Until things change. But
Yeah.
a little rusty getting back, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right, man. Well, this concludes episode 9 of Against the Insanity. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Take care, everybody.
Adios,
Mofo.
mofos.